So I see 3 cars here, Owen.
Yes, this is my 3-car stud.
Okay. I have one at the moment, and it's the little Porsche.
Okay. Yeah, that's the first and the least great of the 3 that I have in any case.
Okay. Have you tuned that one up very much or pretty much left it?
I was just saying to Kevin that the thing with that I find with Revoslots is it's probably the only brand of car I find that you can take out of the box, put it on the track, and it's pretty damn good. I think it's the only brand of car that I've come across that you can do that and expect the car to run well.
Mm.
But yes, there are some things that minimal things that you can do, because I'm trying to think. The one car, the Viper, I've made some changes to because that's a proxy car, and that's for different reasons. But on the other 2, the only thing on these 3 cars that have been changed, replaced, is the motor in the Viper.
Yeah.
You know that the thing that keeps your windshield clean is like a Viper motor?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that fell flat. Yeah, because the stock motor is for the proxy, I think, with a heavy car, I think it's a little bit on the lacking side. So I've put in a scale auto motor with a little bit more oomph. But with our tracks, you know, running on our tracks, that isn't necessary, because all you do, if you feel you want more power, you bump up the voltage. Yeah, how easy is that? It's a lot cheaper than buying a new motor.
Absolutely.
And a lot less work to do replacing the motor, especially with these. It's a bit of a schlep. And we welcome Blair to
our Hello, Blair.
He's cut off his microphone and his camera, so he's traveling incognito.
Mm.
He bought himself a new cognito, so at the moment he's traveling incognito.
Okay, so what do you think about the little Ferrari, Owen?
Love it. I just love it to bits. Hello, Timothy.
Hello.
All righty. How are things in the valley?
Well, I'm having my great supper right now.
You're almost in the valley. You're sort of on the edge of the valley, aren't you?
I am Maple Ridged.
Yeah, it sort of qualifies as the edge of the Fraser Valley, doesn't it?
The edge of civilization.
Now, from which side is that?
Just to the far side.
One could make a TV series out of that.
You could. Make a comic strip out of that
one. We'll give it a few more minutes. Ooh. Ah.
That's my favorite Revoslot because it's the only one I have.
Yes.
But I will have more.
I think everybody should have more Revoslots.
I think that's a great idea.
And I'll tell Alan down in 132 slot car that every Revoslot he sells to the guys up here, I want a commission after that punt.
Mm-hmm. Especially after this tuning session.
This is going to be a huge disappointment, guys.
Well, this is all good.
They come tuned, Tim.
Pardon me?
Elwin's going to take an hour to tell us that these things come already tuned.
Ah, that's the trick.
That's the trick. Yep.
Mm-hmm. They are race ready.
Ready to race out of the box.
Yes. I was being a little bit facetious, but really, I said earlier to Kevin and Ross that I consider Revoslot the only brand of slot car that you can take out of the box, put it on the track, and have a competitive car. without looking at it.
Wow.
Well, it's very difficult to race it without looking at it, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, Blair here. Thought I'd say hello.
Hi, Blair.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yep.
You were below the radar there for a while, Blair. And he's back below the radar.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Oh, well.
It's Mr. O'Reilly. I mean, Corporal O'Reilly. No, not O'Reilly. Was it Radar O'Reilly or Radar O'Reilly?
Radar.
Radar O'Reilly.
Radar O'Reilly.
It's O'Reilly. It's not just Riley.
No, it's O'Reilly.
Okay. Wonderful series that was.
Yes.
So we'll give it a few more minutes. Actually, it's 10 after.
Go ahead.
Let's start. Guys, I'm recording this because Larry and somebody else said they might not make it, so they asked that I should record it. So on your best behavior, please. I mean, you guys are so
well
far
behaved.
out there. I don't know if you're ever going to be, you're incorrigible. Okay. There was some talk about the tuning of Revoslot, so I thought this will be something different. We've covered a lot of the normal, the common stuff, so I thought let's give this a shot. And I'm going to repeat what I said before, and that is that I believe Revoslot is the only brand that I consider a car that you can buy it, pick it up at your post box, take the box to the track, take the car out of the box and put it on the track, and you'll have a car that runs competitively. They're that good to my mind. So really I think the opportunity for improvement, yeah, sort of good news and bad news then. The good news is they run tremendously well out of the box. The bad news is there's not a huge amount of opportunity for improvement. There are certain things that you can do and that you can take a look at, and that's what I'd like to just go over. You can see I have 3 of them, and you might notice that the Viper, the body sits a bit weirdly. That's because the wheelbase has been lengthened, because I want to enter this in the GT3 proxy. The Revo body is not legal. It's an older model of an older Viper that didn't run in the GT3. So this body is not legal for the GT3 proxy. This is a scale auto body that is legal. So
which to my eye looks actually much better than the Revoslot body.
It is. The changes that they made, and I'm talking about not Revoslot, I mean Dodge. This is a much better looking body that the newer GT3 eligible one is. I think it's a gorgeous body. And Scale Auto have done incredibly well. The fit and finish on this and the livery, I think, is gorgeous. So I hope that counts for some points in the proxy. So I'll set this one aside for the moment because this is a little bit of an oddball one. The first Revoslot that I got was the Porsche. And so I'll set this one aside as well for the moment, because I can't show you all 3 at the same time. So for demonstration purposes, we will focus on the Ferrari. Once again, one of the reasons why I like Revoslot is the detailing and the finish on their bodies is just exquisite. This Ferrari to me is as pretty as you can ever get in a slot car. You put that together with the fact that they run well out of the box, And you know, what's not to like? Okay, first things first. Let's take the body off. Now, what this brings the first bit of preparation and tuning. If you watch very carefully, you will see that these 4 body screws are slightly loosened. So the body can actually float on, and just a matter of nomenclature, what Revoslot, this part of the chassis is called the body plate, the one that mounts to the body. This part is the chassis plate. And I went through terrible detail with this with Alan at 132 Slot Car. So one of the things that you can do is back off these screws, these body screws a bit and get a little bit of body float. All you may have to do is get some flexible setting glue. And once you've determined how loose you want the screws to be, put a little bit of glue on the screw and in the mounting post, and make sure it doesn't fall apart. Now, normally, what you're able to do is move this and just clip the body off. But with this one, it's a little bit on the hard side. So I'm going to unscrew 2 of the screws. And by that, you can obviously tell I haven't even bothered putting on any glue on these because they come out very easily. One of the good things that Revoslot do, you'd see on the body post, they have a little rubber cup.
Now.
I've had it off before, so it's definitely comable, offable.
We're recording this, so be careful.
I didn't say anything obnoxious yet.
I'm anticipating.
Okay.
We'll have to edit it later.
Yeah, I got the power. Oh, the tire, yeah. On the Ferrari, the tire hits the wheel well. So you
Front or back?
Yes.
Yes.
The inside of the rear tire hits the actually, it does the same at the front. So with a Ferrari, obviously, it is better to unscrew it better. I've been working on the Viper recently, so that one comes off a lot easier. Okay, so what you would notice on the body is, as I say, the body mountings, you've got these little rubber cups, which is a nice professional touch, because what it means is it dampens vibration and it gives some noise isolation, which they had to do because the Porsche, their first cars were noisier than normal, than average. Okay, so what do we have here? A couple of things that I'd like to point out right off the bat. The first is these cars respond well to, this is a very thin layer of lead. It's probably no more than about 5 grams. Somewhere between 5 and 10 grams, say. This works well. This is one of the few things that you can do that has an advantage. Next thing that I want to emphasize, when I said I haven't replaced anything on these cars, that includes tires. I run my Revoslots with the original tires. They come out with, oops, I see Larry is trying to join us. And
hey guys,
Larry has joined us.
Larry.
Hey, Larry, sorry, I was focusing on the table here. I hope you haven't been waiting too long to be let in.
Nope, it's okay. Sorry, I was just tied up for a minute.
Tied up, oh, kinky.
Not loose.
So the first thing that I want to emphasize is, I mentioned Larry at the beginning that on my Revoslots, typically I replace no parts, and that includes the tires. I believe their tires are pretty much, thank you, coffee has arrived. Their tires are as good as it gets. And I don't mean they're as good as it gets for an off-the-shelf car. I mean, they're as good as it gets for slot car tires that you can get for running on wood. They're rubber. They're around 30 shore hardness. The standard Paul gauge tires and what Luff used to do is 40 shore urethane. For proxies, most people use NSR super grips or ultra grips. Those are in the low 20s. I think the super grips are like 22 shore and the ultra grips are like 18 shore or something like that. For some reason, even though these are rated at 30 shore, I find them to be, they feel and they perform and wear and true, like ultra grips closer to super grips. So all that I've done is, you all know that they have the double flanged wheels.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time where everybody says either yes or no.
You mean like the air wheels?
No, they don't have the central rib. They have, I don't have a wheel to show you because all of the ones that I've got, instead of, they're like the wheels we had in the 60s.
Okay.
With a rib on the outside. So
Right.
it's no rib in the middle. It just has a little lip on the outside of the wheel. So
Okay.
the tire sits between the outer lips.
Like your regular car wheel.
The same, just different, yes.
Yeah.
So very much the same. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? I would go for indifferent. I really don't see much of a difference between them. They're very easy to glue. These tires are difficult to true. They're sort of good news and bad news when it comes to truing. The bad news is they're incredibly difficult to true because they sort of melt. And I don't know if you'd be able to see, but on this tire, there's a little bit of a small ball of rubber. It's like jeepers creepers, great balls of rubber. And when you run them, has anybody followed real life racing, one-to-one racing in real life in person? Because you'd notice tires on racing cars, it looks like the rubber is melted and it's sort of scuffled up. These tires behave like that. They tend to scuff up and melt. Geez, I can try and show you some of my motorcycle tires because that's what I got that on a track day, for instance, where it melts and it gets this funny texture, the molten scrubbed look. And now I'll have a sip of coffee. So the bad news is these tires are so good news, they're very good. Bad news, they're difficult to true because they start melting. Even doing it very carefully. The good news is you don't have to true the hell out of them. My Viper is now my fastest car. And on that, normally when I true both urethanes and NSR rubber tires, I start off with 150 grit and then go to 320 and then to 600, because you have to polish it. And with the 300 and 600, I use wet and dry paper so that you polish it. And if you don't do that to NSR rubber tires, they suck. If you don't do it to urethanes, you don't get the best out of them. You can do better by polishing them. I find with these tires, if you get them just so that they're basically round and not all that rough, with 150 grit, they're fine. Then you run some laps and the tires clean themselves up and they grip like hell. I mean, they are any day as good as good NSR rubber tires. And good NSR tires are pretty much the best you can get. So if I were you, I would not replace the tires with urethanes. Comments, questions, amazement?
You can buy different tires for them, different Revo tires, can't you? Different shore numbers.
Softnesses.
Yeah.
Yes. As I say, the standard tires are 30 shore. They also have 25 shore, and then something like a 20, I think.
Okay.
When I started testing my Viper for the proxy, I used the stock tires, but then I also ordered some 25 shore tires. And at this stage, I don't see much advantage in the 25s. I'm concerned about wear in the proxy.
Yeah.
I mean, tire wear, not the location wear.
Durability.
Yes. So at this stage, I'm going to Chris's place on Saturday to run my car on his shorter track because I'm afraid the Tannex track is a very specific kind of track. And I just want to make sure that I'm not getting a false sense of security because this car is doing so well on the Tannex track, that if I run it on a shorter or a different kind of track, that it goes all to hell. So I will let you all know after Saturday how it went there, because this way I can run, I'll be taking 4 proxy eligible cars there to see how they compare on Chris's track. And I can also compare it to what Chris has been getting for his proxy cars. So that'll be a very good test. But and I will try both the 30 and 25 shore hardness there, Ross.
Okay.
But at this stage, I don't see any advantage in going for the softer tire. I mean, the 30 shore is already softer than the Paul gauge and the Luff tires that we're using.
Yeah.
And they also, because they're rubber and their formulation is such that they grip better than the urethanes. So once again, that's why I say, when I said you can take them out of the box and race them, the tires, even if they're not that round, the way that they tend to wear smoothly very quickly. So they tend to grip well. This is not me saying don't true your tires. Don't believe that for a second. The one thing that I firmly believe you still need to do with these cars is you should glue and true the tires and round the edges, which is part and parcel of truing the tires. So what we have for now is stock tires, lightly trued. Stock motor, no change. Stock axle holders and bushings, no change. Stock gear, no change. Everything over here, keep the same. You get different, these are shoulder nuts. I think we're all familiar with shoulder bolts, but these nuts are machined so that they have a reduced diameter at the bottom, so that you tighten them onto the body plate, but because there's a recess on the nut itself, you can get movement between the two plates, and that is similar in concept to a pod float in a slotted car, for instance. You get different nuts. You all seen all kinds of different nuts on the road and in business, etc. So even these, you can get different nuts with a different clearance, so you can get more or less movement. You can also get suspension nuts that have a bigger clearance and they have springs on them. I wouldn't bother. Feel free if you want to experiment with all kinds of different amounts of movement, but I don't think it's worthwhile. But that's just me. Okay. On the front, I'm going to tell you to do something that if you take a look at this car, you'll see I haven't done it to mine. Because of the design, the cars run on the front tires, basically. Because of the movement between, you'll see that the front wheels are mounted on the body plate, and the back wheels are obviously on the chassis plate, and the guide is on the chassis plate. So the way that it's designed, it will run on the front tires. From the performance, that is not an issue. The only thing that I will tell you is it is much better to properly true and profile the front tires. So this is one car that I'm going to say you must true and profile the front tires. I've just not gotten around to doing it with this car. If you take a look, and I know this is getting a little bit difficult to see. I don't know how well you can see it. But if you take a look closely at the Viper, you'll see that these tires are basically trued, and the shoulders are very well rounded. So that's something that I would stress the importance of. I personally, on this car, I've replaced the braid with softer braid. With this one, I haven't. With this one, I haven't, and I haven't even touched these braids. That's most uncommon. But that just goes to show how well these cars can run without messing with them. I've not done a single solitary thing to the guide mounting and the guides themselves. They're the stock guides, and because the weight of the chassis plate rests on the guide, I've not done anything to it.
Alwyn, there's two guides that come with the Revoslot. There's a deeper wood guide, and the one that it has is the standard. Have you switched to the wood guide?
Nope.
Okay. And there is also a spring.
Even aware of that.
Yeah, I got two in the box. So in other words, one extra one in the box.
Okay.
Which is a deeper guide, slightly deeper. I think it's still fine for our tracks. And there's also a spring inside the guide post. I'm curious if
those. I don't like those, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I like my guides to be mounted solidly.
Right.
And welcome, John.
Hey guys.
Hey, John.
I have been recording everything, John. So I will, as always, put this on YouTube. So if you want to do catch up, I can.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. I just ended up getting home from work, so.
Yeah, yeah, that bloody 4-letter word again that gets in the way of living, eh?
I know. Days like today, I wish I was able to just stay in bed.
Yeah. The good news is you really haven't missed much, because I've been spending the last half an hour telling people that they don't have to do anything to their Revoslots, basically.
Okay. Sounds good.
I just emphasized that the chassis that I've got over here is the Ferrari 333. It has the stock tires that have been glued and lightly trued. It has a little bit of a flat weight on the middle chassis plate. Yep. The front is still absolutely standard. The guide, everything is still basically standard.
Okay.
So it's don't change the tires. The tires are better than anything that you'll get from Paul Gage or any other urethane tire.
Okay.
They're tough to true. They're a pain in the lower back, but their grip when the track is clean is way better than any urethane.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever ran my Supra with the stock tires on it. Should try that.
Yeah. They're softer than Paul Gage tires. Yeah. And the rubber formulation gives you more grip.
Cool.
Okay, so it's pretty damn easy to prepare these, isn't it? So yeah, the one thing that you can experiment with is if you really want, buy the different nut sets from 132 slot car US that allows more, you know, that they have different degrees of motion that they allow between the two plates. And if you really want, get the suspension one that has a really big clearance and soft springs on top, so that dampens the movement. And speaking of which, what I've done with my proxy prepared car is I did the old packing tape thing on the two chassis parts. It's really between the weight and the tape. I think I don't think you need anything more than that. I'm prepared to send this car into a proxy this way. Wow. This is, guys, this is dead simple.
How much weight are you running there, Alwyn, approximately?
As I said a little bit earlier, when you weren't listening, apparently, Larry, between 5 and 10 grams, I would say. Okay. On the, so it's you can see it looks a relatively large piece, but it's very thin.
Okay.
So I would not go over 10 grams. I don't think you need to go over 10 grams. Remember, guys, these cars are heavier than the plastic chassis cars. This one is now up at about 102 grams. So you really, the Porsche, no weight. This is just as it comes. Both of these cars, the Ferrari and the Viper, have the same setup. They both, I think it's like 7 or 8 grams that I've got in there, Larry.
Okay.
So you don't. Well,
sorry, you said 102. Are you including the body or just the chassis?
That's the complete car.
Complete car. Okay.
Yeah. You know, that is heavier than your average. You know, if you take a look at a new slotted, they're all like high 60s, low 70 grams. So if you add 10 grams there, you're around 80 grams. So this is a fair bit heavier. I mean, it's a metal chassis. It is heavier, which is why you will, on my Porsche and Ferrari, I still have the stock motor, because on our tracks, if I feel that I need more power, hey, voila, you turn up the voltage. You got the power.
Please don't do that again.
Unless we can see your dance moves.
Okay, my wife is also complaining from inside. But because of, on the proxy, the tracks can be anywhere between 10 and 12 volts. And people tend to have a little bit more oomph. What I've done is I've got a Scale Auto FK 130, which the stock motor is 21,000 RPM and 200 gram-centimeters of torque. This does 25,000 RPM and 225 gram-centimeters of torque. So in terms of horsepower, it's up about 35% on the stock motor. I'm hoping that's enough. I'll have to see how it runs on Chris's track on Saturday. If push comes to shove, you can get a regular FC 130, you know, the regular slotted short can or NSR short can motor will fit in here. So I'm hoping that would not be necessary. I'm hoping that this is going to be enough. In fact, I'm prepared to gamble on going light on power and improve drivability for the proxy, because that's where I think that gives you an advantage. Also, Ross, you were talking about, and apparently you finished your supper, so it's good to see you again.
Yeah, I've got, what do you call it? Cup of tea here now.
Okay.
There we go.
Coffee.
We're in business. Yes.
So you were talking about the noisiness.
Yeah, mine's an early one of the Porsche cars. And I tried it once and it was just crazy noisy. And then I went onto some forums and they were talking about swapping over to slotted components because they're a lot quieter. I don't know if mine has those little rubber dampers on the body.
There are a few things that you can do. I've not done extensive research. The problem, of course, is because these have 3mm axles, and the bushing holders are 6mm. The ball bearings that are on these have a 3mm ID for the axle and a 6mm OD to fit in the bushing holder. I don't know where you're going to find a bushing / bearing that is 3/32 ID and 6mm OD. I don't think it's a big deal because it does seem like people have been doing it. Well, this is when Revo first came out. I think people were doing it, but I don't know how. Well, you'd have to replace the bushings with something like that. Well, they replaced like the pillow block, and then you'd have, a different hole in there for your other bushings. That's something that I haven't looked at yet. I was meaning to take a look at if you get the standard bearings, bushings that you get with slotteds, etc. Obviously has the 3/32 ID and then 3/16 OD. So I don't know if Revoslot makes a pillow block like that, mounting the bushing holder. Because I don't know. If you have to kludge something together, as I say, I've obviously not done it because I like the way, even if the Porsche is a little bit noisier. The one other thing that you can do is take a little bit of grease, any light grease. I have some super lube grease that I use on gears and stuff. And what you do is you put a little bit of grease between the plates over here where they mount and those shoulder nuts. Just a light little bit. And just, massage it a bit so that it's all over. That takes away the noise over here. On the gearing, I have found if you get the mesh right, they're not that, the older, this is the Porsche. Yeah. And this is the Ferrari.
Oh, big difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I suspect they did something to the gearing.
Yeah. That's my one.
But on the other, that is just a gorgeous livery.
I quite like it, but yeah, that's the one I had, and yeah, it's quite noisy.
Yeah, what I've noticed is I've got some slop in the back of the Porsche. And don't you hate it when you get slop in the back of your Porsche?
Mm-hmm.
And I should, because that's one thing that you need to be aware of as well. With ball bearings, there should be no sideways play on the axle, like zero. I mean, it shouldn't be clamped, but you should have zero sideways play on the axle. It should obviously just barely, the spacer should barely be touching the bearings. Don't clamp them. But you don't want movement of the axle on those because the spacers actually fit onto the inner race that moves with the axle. So everything moves together. It's not like you're getting friction between the bushing, or sorry, the spacer and the bearing. So ball bearings, no sideways play. That's something I learned in the 60s because I used ball bearings on my cars at that stage as well. If you have regular bushings, yes, you've got to have a hair's worth of play, sideways play. Ball bearings, just barely, you can have 1 thou of play, but essentially nothing. Yep.
Hey, Owen, what about putting tape on the, I think on one of them where they talk about tuning these things to get rid of the noise, they put some tape where you were saying put the grease underneath the body to the body plate to the other plate.
Chassis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am not comfortable with that for 2 reasons. First off, if you put tape in there with the glue and stuff, you're going to pretty much gum up the works. The other one is if you're putting it between the two, you're eliminating there's not a huge amount of movement on these. So if you're putting in tape between the two, you're going to reduce that movement even further. So I would personally rather not do that.
Right.
That's a personal choice.
So one of the video that Larry's mentioning there, they don't use glue. They just use a piece of Gorilla Tape. They perforate it, like make the hole so that the screw can go through. But the metal to metal type of noise is supposed to be reduced. And I'm assuming it's going to work a bit like a damper as well in terms of the amount of movement might be restricted a bit more.
But Gorilla Tape has glue on it. I mean, it has adhesive on the one side.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that...
and the adhesive comes out on the edges. You never get something fitting that cleanly. But the bigger thing is, if you're putting it there, you're reducing the amount of movement that's available.
Right.
So try the grease first. And really, with the newer Revoslots, noise isn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
My Viper is whisper quiet. So if you have the mesh set up properly, you have a little bit of lubricant between, on that on these points over here, and you've got some tape on the body, on the chassis. I don't think with the newer ones it's an issue. I wouldn't. That to me sounds over elaborate, and the perfect solution to a non-existent problem. You can get away with something simpler. I don't see the advantage in it. You know, I mean, try it by all means. I just wouldn't bother personally. They obviously found it's worth it for them. And if my car sucks in the proxy, then you know what value to put on my comments.
Okay.
I think if you guys were going to do that, instead of using tape, I'd probably find a small O-ring. Pull the nutserts out and then put an O-ring around it and then cinch it back in.
Yeah, Slot Car Corner sells these small little O-rings that to be used on motor pods and body mounts. I think I would prefer something like that as well, but in all probability, what I'd probably do then is use the shoulder nuts with the bigger travel, because you're going to take up some of the travel by putting in the O-ring. And if you put in the O-ring thickness is about the total of the movement that you have between the two parts. So you're going to be pretty much eliminating the movement. So definitely you'd have to put in, to my mind, get some of the, and I can't, it's not something that I've looked at. I just sort of cursorily noticed that they have these shoulder nuts. I don't know what better to call them, with different amounts of movement allowed, you know, with the recess, longer and shorter recesses to allow more or less movement. So yeah, I would think that's, if I were to do it, that's the way I would go as well, John, with an O-ring and the longer travel nut. That to me looks a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
But for the moment, guys, what I found with the newer cars is that my Ferrari is quiet, and the Viper is very quiet. I think the noise was definitely on the Porsches and to a certain extent on the Marcoses. I don't think anybody in our group has a Marcos, do they?
No.
You're not one of my favorite looking cars. That I just don't think they're pretty. The other thing that I would just like to point out as well is there was a running change on rear wheel sizes. If you take a look at the wheels on the Porsche, they're a fair bit narrower than, they're like a millimeter narrower, or the newer cars have 1 millimeter wider wheels on the back. The Toyota GT1, I think the Supra has the wider wheels as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's quite the alliteration of W's, the wider wheels as well, really. And the Viper definitely, the Porsche definitely had the narrower wheels, and I think the Marcos has had the narrower wheels, and I'm not sure. I think the transition happened around the Supra time. So the Ferrari, the Viper, and the GT1 have the wider back wheels. I think that's something that's quite, that makes a bit of difference, I believe. Guys, and at that, this is the point where I run out of ideas on Revoslots. They're that simple. They really are that simple. So,
yeah, there's nothing I can add. I've ran my Super quite a bit. It doesn't even have weight. It's just the chassis and the body plate are taped, and that's it. It's quiet.
yeah.
It runs
Did
solid.
you use the stock tires, John?
No, I have Paul Gauge on mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after what Alwyn said, I think I might try the stock tires on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're a bit of a pain in the lower back to true. But John, when you do true them, you don't have to go through the rigmarole that I normally go with urethanes and NSR rubber.
Yeah.
because they tend to melt
Yeah.
when you try to true them. So I just get them to get a basically consistent, to get them round and a consistent contact patch over the width of the tire. And even if they're rough, when you run them, they wear themselves smooth very quickly, which is, they're very different to any other tire that I've ever used. And at this stage, I consider them to be pretty much the bee's knees in terms of tires.
Yeah.
So
Well,
much. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I can tell you one thing. I ran a set of XPGs on my Super, and I think they lasted 2 months worth of racing, and then that was it. They were toast. They're like rubber bands when they came off.
I struggled with the XPGs because I found that they marbled.
Yeah.
And then they didn't grip well.
Yeah.
And then they wore the hell out of them very quickly. So it's
very quick.
It's strange that because I was speaking with Chris about tire wear for the proxy, because it's something that I was concerned about. But the NSR tires are actually softer than these. I was telling the guys earlier that super grips apparently are something like 22 shore, and the ultra grips are like 18 shore, which is ridiculously soft.
Yeah.
And the stock Revoslot are 30 shore, and I've tried a set of 25s, and I didn't find much difference. But I haven't run it that much. So I'll run both sets at Chris's place this Saturday. I'll be dropping off the chassis with him this Saturday. It's in my car, John.
Very good, thank you.
And I'll see, but it's I've never had, even with ultra grips, problems with tires lasting for the duration of a proxy, and that's 10 rounds of racing. So it's 10 rounds of qualifying and then 10 rounds of at least 2 lane rotation, at least 10 minutes worth of running. Now, that's not that much probably, but at least it goes to show that the tire should be able to last.
Yeah.
And on top of that, for this proxy, the minimum rear tire diameter is 19 millimeters, and my tires are almost 21. So I can wear like hell before.
You get some room.
And then it's going to drag its ass on the track.
Hey, Alwyn, any ideas on how to take those screws out that I've got that I fired you the picture at? In the back there on the back axle pillow blocks?
Well, one of the problems is the screw heads are rounded.
Yeah, I realize that.
And there's not much I can do about that, because
no. But if I try and drill those out, is there likely to be enough anything to be sticking through to be able to undo that portion and just put another screw in, or do you think I'll end up having to replace the pillow blocks? And the only pillow blocks I see on 132 are the ones for the GT2.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you, Larry, I don't see much difference between the different cars, because if you take a look at the Ferrari on this side, has golden blocks, and the Viper has green, and they may be higher or lower. That's the one thing. They could be different heights.
Yeah, that's what I think it is it's the higher and the lower.
Yeah, and that, of course, can screw things up totally. So, but that's something I suggest, as I mentioned to you, give Alan a call. Send him an email. He will be able to get you an answer. But the thing is, the chances are, I think, if you're going to try and drill them out, if you're lucky, you can use a bigger drill bit and just drill out off the head of the screws. And if the bushing holders then fall out, there should still a piece of screw, the thickness of the chassis plate should protrude. And if you're very lucky, you'd be able to grip it with a pair of pliers and unscrew it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too.
But this is a little bit of a no-win situation there.
No.
It's
That's why I haven't bothered playing with it. I just, okay, it's running still, so keep on it along.
Yeah, is there a compelling reason why you have to remove it?
Well, I was just concerned that the fact that I do actually have a little bit of play in the back axles, and you know, like even a little bit forward, backward. Like if I grab the two, I can see it moving in and out of the pinion slightly.
You mean it's the wheel is moving like this?
Here, I'll show you. You see my car?
Yeah, lift it up. Okay.
Okay.
Lift it up a bit more. Okay, there's something hokey there.
Because it's definitely moving there, and like I said, I can't get the axle out at all. It's like it's pressed it into the ball bearings.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Have you had the take the body? If you had the body off, Larry, and had a look to see what is moving, is it the support for the axle or is it the bearing?
Actually, it seems well. I can see the bearing moving back and forth in the pillow block.
Take the body off and show us, Larry.
Yep. Don't have any conversation.
Because I mean, the movement can be in one of three places. The axle within the inner race. The second one is the inner race relative to the outer race. And the last one is the outer race in the pillow block. So those are the only three options. And I find it hard to understand how any of those can be possible with is this the car you got from Doug?
Yep.
Now, Doug, unfortunately, sometimes did strange things to cars.
Yeah, I know, he's a bit of
a Yeah, I don't think I'd buy one from Doug.
I had a Doug car.
You did?
Once.
Once? You gave it to Jamie? Is that why he's complaining?
The only thing that's left of that car is the body.
So yeah, because as a car tuner, Doug is a wonderful photographer.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a stellar photographer. He is just unbelievable. But when it comes to tuning cars, as I say, I've seen him do some inexplicable things.
Okay, so can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
If I can move the axle back and forth, and that's the bearing is moving in the pillow block.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, looking at the screen, the right-hand one, it's moving in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, in and out should be no problem if you remove
the wheel a bit. And then if I go this way.
Yeah, I can't see anything that way.
It's very difficult to see.
Okay.
You know, the amount of movement is so small relative to one's finger movements, and
right.
It's so hard to see. Or maybe I'm just blind. Who said that?
I'm almost deaf.
That's unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Larry, I'm prepared to offer to try to take a look at it and see if I could see anything when you. It's always better to see it in person.
Yeah, I realize that.
So I would happily take a look at it in person and comment on it. And if it's something that's easily remediable, then I do that. Are the screw heads so rounded you can't get them out?
I honestly haven't tried because to me it looks like 3 of them are pretty much toast.
You know what? I
They're
might be able
Phillips,
to
aren't
work.
they?
I may be able
You
to
can get
work with
those
that,
out.
Larry.
Yeah.
That?
I think I may be able to work with that, man.
Yeah.
If you have a good Phillips.
Yeah.
Maybe
Why
use a
don't you-
different size. Sometimes you use a different size, it helps.
Yeah.
Why don't you try and get me that car, Larry, before because Alwyn's busy for the next couple of days anyway. See what I can do with it.
Are you, who's John? You're going to Tanex tomorrow, aren't you, or not?
Yeah.
Larry, are you going?
I don't know. I would like to. I'll have to see what happens. I see there's another 142 cases today, so the wife is kind of all up in the air about everything like that.
Yeah, we're really in the second wave now. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, they had what 700 or 800 in Ontario today.
Yeah, well, we used to be in the 200 to 500 cases a day Canada-wide. Now we're up at 2,500 again.
Yeah.
Okay, at least we're not Russia at 13,000.
Or the US, 59,000 2 days ago.
That's insane. Like
France as well. France is taking a beating, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, England's taking a pretty good hit too.
They're all going back down into lockdown, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Talking about it.
I think I read.
France?
I think France already has.
I think they have, yeah.
Yeah, they implemented a curfew or something like that.
Yeah.
Some other stuff, but
That's something that that Snoopy said, wasn't it? Curfew, Red Baron.
Yes.
Hey, Owen, did you notice much difference between your 25,000 and your 21,000?
Yeah, there's 4. There's 4, Larry.
Yes, there is a difference, Larry, but I negated that when I was testing the car by running it at just over 12 volts with the softer, with the lower power motor.
Right.
So yes, there is a difference, definitely. At the same voltage, yeah, there is a difference. Because it's quite a big difference because it's almost 20% more RPMs and 15% more torque. So between those two, it's more than 30% more. Now that's something that like 35, 40%. So that's something that one should feel.
Okay, so did you notice how much more in drivability, hardness, or was it still quite drivable at?
In both cases, it was still drivable because they were running identically because I was running the weaker motor at higher voltage.
Right.
So they were in both cases. The car was still very drivable, partly because of the stability and the weight, and it just handles magnificently well on the Tanex track. That is, when I ran it, I was disappointed. Oh, sorry, guys. I was disappointed at Perry's track when I had it there, but I think that was because I wasn't able to run a lot of laps. Typically when I got fast times, I'd been running ahead of time with cars and cleaning track, cleaning tires, because you have to have meticulously clean tires and track to replicate proxy conditions. And I never got to that point on Perry's track when I had the Viper there. So I wasn't meeting the lap times that I had done before with my Corvette that I sent in last year. but I think that was purely because I didn't run the number of laps and I didn't clean the track the way that I had before.
Yeah, well, could you put the Ferrari in the picture, please?
Hey, John, do you have any
Thank
of those screws that fit in for the bottom of the pillow block there?
Oops, wrong.
If
Do
we
I have
do
any?
get- if we
Do I have
do get-
spares?
What's that?
Do I have spares?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I do or not.
I can't even see where you can buy the screws unless you turn around and buy the pillow blocks.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked, but
Maybe go to the Revo site. They might be able to.
Well, BR 132 is the
They're the importers and the
main
agents.
supplier for BRM.
Yeah, they're the
But-
distributors.
Who looks after them in Europe?
Revoslot themselves.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Try those people, or another big place like Pendle Slot. They might have some pieces as well for those things.
No,
but
they don't.
you'll get it from Alan. And
Yeah.
no, I'm sure if you ask him, he'll get you some screws
Yeah,
without
okay.
screwing around.
Right. Okay.
I don't think he's unscrupulous.
What are his prices like? That one I haven't looked. At
His
132.
Revoslot prices are pretty consistent everywhere. His
Yeah.
prices are much the same of everybody. Plus, he's got all the spares that you'd need. When I asked Roger to drill out the chassis plate for me, I'd actually wanted to order a spare chassis plate in case something
Okay. In case it went
bad
wrong.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't find the right part on Alan's website, so I sent him an email. And typical of Alan, a couple of days later, I get a call from him saying it's easier to talk than to email backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And we just spoke about what I was looking for, and he said, okay, I'll send you one. If I don't have one, I'll take it off one of the cars and I'll send it to you. So he's done stuff like that. He's done stuff like that for me several times before. When I was looking for the first SCP-2 controllers, he didn't have a ready-made controller, but he had a handle and he had the innards. So he said, that's no problem. I'll put it together for you and sell it to you at the same price, because normally if you have the two parts, if you buy them separately, it's a hell of a lot more expensive than the controller itself. So,
Yeah, really.
I'll put it together for you and give it to you at the same price. He's on a scale auto 1/24, that Z4 BMW that I have, he swapped bodies on that for me. So because he's the distributor and he has a lot of stuff, he does things like that. Okay, Alan and I go back a long time because I've been down there for the 24-hour race like 5-6 times already. So, but it just shows he's prepared to do stuff for you.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll see if I can get those out for you, Larry, and then maybe that might be the best thing is to give him a call and say, hey, dude, I'm screwed. You got any screws?
Put it this
Screw
way.
you.
I think the best bet is to find out if I can get them or get the pillow blocks first before I turn around and disable the car.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're planning on coming out racing and you want to use the car, I haven't used mine for a while. I can put my screws in your car.
Yeah, no, well, like I said, I don't expect you to do that, John. I mean, I appreciate that, and but you know that's going way beyond anything that I expect.
And it's not like I'm short of other cars to use, bro. It's okay.
Yeah, I noticed that. You got quite the selection of parts there, all right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to step into that conversation.
No, don't go there. Don't go there.
No.
You got that beautiful Ferrari sitting there, Alwyn.
Yes,
What
sir.
happens with that big wing on the back? Isn't that going to snap off sometime?
Those Tim are cool.
It's detachable, if I remember correctly.
It's magnetic.
That's right.
So that's just a lovely detail.
That's an excellent freaking detail, that is.
I love that detail.
Yes. So it's yeah, it has a magnet in there. Yeah, like magic, good as new. Yeah, you just have to put it in properly. Yeah, that's unlike the what Lamar miniature Jaguar XR12 that I had that had the triple decker wing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit, you know, on that track there's always things that you could hit, and it caught part of the track on the side, and it exploded into 47 different pieces. But I mean, the wing on that car, let me see if I can lay my hands on it.
Well, that was actually like Ross's wing off his Mercedes when that thing got contact with whatever it was. It blew apart into a million pieces too. I don't think anybody ever found any of it.
Yeah, I got a couple of pieces, but the big piece, the biggest piece, I never did find.
I never saw it.
I think it's on the roof.
It flew.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes the wing is what makes the car, you know. Without the wing, they look funny.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
they look
true.
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, Ross, I do have that plain black one for your
Hey,
car.
I haven't got, yeah. I will take that. Thank you,
Yep.
John.
No, I got it for you for whenever the next time is I see you.
Cool, thank you.
You bet, man.
Okay, guys, if you've ever seen a wing on a race car,
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the Group C.
Yeah.
It's
Biplane
hard to
wing.
see, but it's like a triple decker.
Yeah, it's like an old Sopworth camel.
Stop with
Oh, it's
camel, yeah.
a Fokker tripod.
That's the one.
I mean, look at this thing. It's half the length of the car.
That's
It's
massive.
half the car.
Yeah, and the end plates are actually metal.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That'll slice fingers as you go by.
Yeah, so it's but this is a very unusual model. If you take a look, Lamar Miniatures, it's the only slot car that I have that has the guide behind the front wheels.
Oh, Jesus.
I was looking at getting a Le Mans and Le Mans miniature, a Mirage, and the guide was behind the wheel. I couldn't figure out how it would race. Like your front wheels would be kind of going more like that and not following the guide. Does it even run on a track okay?
Yeah, but Le Mans Miniatures are motorized scale models. They're not.
They're
for
shelf
racing.
They're not
queens.
primarily.
No, I didn't get it because of that, yeah.
But as a model, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
But the front axle fitted into a sort of kind of recess on the body. It had some very French engineering in it. It's most unusual, but it is very pretty, and it goes. I got it to go okay, but you'll never, you know, you'd never use it for race winning purposes.
No.
Hey, Alwyn,
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
The chair
So-
recognizes Mr. Blair.
That's Mr. Blair, yeah. So I have a Revo 911 GT2. I suspect the same as the one that you've got sitting there with it in a different livery. And on mine, on the chassis plate, so the front axle pillow blocks are mounted to the chassis plate, and there's a set of holes that on the motor plate that would allow you to move the pillow blocks for the front axle off of the chassis plate and onto the
Well,
motor
from the
plate.
body plate to the chassis plate. Yeah, so it's like they're mounted. This is the body plate on the outside.
Yeah.
I spent hours talking with Ellen about this to try and get the definition right. And this is the chassis plate in their parlance. Yeah, so you've got the holes over here that you can move it over there.
Yeah. Have you experimented with that?
No, they're at a different level. So I suspect you should probably have higher bushing holders.
Yeah, either that or you'd have to shim the pillow blocks. But I was just curious to know if, because right now the front axle and the rear axle kind of move or float a little bit independent of each other.
Yep.
And if you move the pillow blocks to the other plate, then of course they'd move in unison. And I'm curious to know how it would perform any differently.
Yeah, if you take a look, all the what you get with a plastic chassis with a pod is you're disconnecting the movement of the front and rear, and that's what you actually, that's desirable.
Yeah.
So
curious to see where mine are mounted.
I think that if you would try to move those blocks to the chassis plate, you'd have real problems with tire interference on your body, though, because it's really tight on the Porsche. There's a tight fit between the tires and the body, and if you start moving that, you might get some interference.
I think you'd actually increase the clearance between the tires and the body.
Looks like you'd raise the body away from the wheels and the front wheels.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, if you do it properly, the relative position shouldn't change. I mean, the guide will be in the same place, and your guide determines the height of the wheels. So it shouldn't.
Yeah, so you'd bring the front axle down relative to the guide because of the way the plates are aligned.
Right.
Well, no, you mustn't bring it down, because that way, if you bring it down, you're raising in effect the guide. So what you'd have to do is, if you put it on that one, you'd have to have taller bushing holders to
or
spacing
shim
between the guide and the wheels.
Yeah. Maybe I'll fiddle with it one day just for fun.
Yeah,
it'll be an interesting experiment. Yeah. Yep, that's the standard way.
Yeah.
Never even thought about that.
But the car runs good. You know, I've done nothing to it other than I ran it with very lightly trued stock tires, and I found it pretty slippery. So I switched to urethane tires, and I found that I could turn faster laps with it. And yeah, there's, my Porsche 10, it has a tendency to want to roll just ever so slightly. So I think I'm going to put that 5 or 6 grams of thin lead sheet inside the chassis the way you did, Alwyn, with your other cars, and I'll see if that makes a difference. And honestly, that's probably all the car needs.
Yeah, I really like them because they're so different, and I thought it was a brave move of Revoslot to do this, and I like the concept, and the fact that my Viper is running so well is obviously a bonus.
I think you'd actually destroy some of the handling, because you're getting away from the basically the chassis is like a nice little fulcrum style right now, where you've got the back wheels and the guide all in the same plane, and then the front wheels and that are totally separate. So and that's the way that they've, over the years, they've found that the best handling is when you're in a nice little fulcrum, where you've got the back wheels and the guide are on a separate plane than the regulars.
Yeah.
That's the same as like the Cucaracha and that, made by Cox back in the days. And that was a very winning chassis at the time because of that development.
Yeah, it's well, NSR, Thunderslot, Slotted, all of those have the guide and the front tires on the same fixed on the same plate, and then the back wheels are I think so. It's okay if you have the guide and the front wheels mounted on the same thing, but I think it's still best if you have the front wheels and the back wheels have a degree of freedom there. but it's always worth a try. I'm just not going to fiddle with it now. My car's running too nicely because I have a bit of a history of the reverse Midas touch, the sardine touch. Instead of touching it and turns to gold, it turns to something else. So it's I'm too afraid I'll break it. But Blair, I'd look forward to hearing how it worked for you.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have no fear of breaking my cars.
Gentlemen, is that it for this evening?
Hey, Owen, what about the question I was asking about the gearing? Did you find that if instead of, if you're trying to get faster lap times, rather than bump the voltage to change the gearing, would it make it more, the car more handling, or vice versa, you think?
Larry, I've always said, and I've said this many times, I tend to stay away from too much torque at the back wheels. My preference is to have it softer, to gear it softer. But with all my cars, am I going to change gearing because I run it at a different voltage? No.
No.
I tend to accept my cars as they are and I drive them accordingly.
Right.
So could it be better if I changed the gearing? Possibly. But I couldn't be bothered if a car runs well. You know, I can only have one fastest car. So I tend to accept them to a large extent for what they are. With a proxy car, I would fiddle around potentially. But then interestingly enough, when I got my Corvette back, I now find it very twitchy. And I'm not sure. The problem was I ran it on Luff's track and also on Roger's track. And now I'm running a lot on the Tanex track. So it's, but even on Perry's track, I found that the Corvette now too twitchy. And that I think is one of the reasons why I only ended up 12th. So that's why I'm going for softer this year. Because Chris says I'm a bad tuner because I tend to drive around the problems with my cars, deficiencies. And maybe that's the case. So if I can get it around the track quick, I'm happy, but then different people don't drive the same way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wasn't very nice of him to say, Alwyn. Did you give him a what for after that, or what?
I wasn't sure. I was flatteringly insulted. And I just made that up as I was saying it. Because on the one hand, what he was really trying to say is I drive too well to take the time to sort out deficiencies.
Yeah.
So I'll take the positive, and thank you, Chris. You're saying I'm a good driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Be positive about it and forget the lousy tuner part. Yeah. Stick with the good driver, Alwyn. Forget the lousy tuner.
Yeah. Never mind that.
Yeah. Yeah, God. Time for another cup of tea.
That's why he always ends up doing way better in proxies than what I do.
Yeah, he does have a nice tech, just the way magical hands with the tuning there, Alwyn.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm curious to see. I'll let you guys know what happens on Saturday when I run my cars on his track.
Let him run your car.
Yeah, he's done that as well and commented. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's one thing. Tuning is the.
So you're tuning to you. You should be letting other people drive your cars, you know.
Yeah, you should.
There's one
Should.
Yeah,
I should drive your cars.
There you go.
you got to tune it to the person.
Put me on that list.
Ability.
Yeah, the problem is sometimes, you know, there's a deficiency, and you know what the deficiency is, but my problem is frequently, well, how do I get rid of that? How do I improve it? You know, it's because there's only so many things you can do, and if you've got the basics down, now you're fiddling with different amounts of tape in different places, more body float, less body float, more pod float at the back, less at the front, more at the front, less at the back, more everywhere, less everywhere, no float. It just gets, I get so confused.
Yep. And you end up, when you're all done, going round and round in circles, coming right back to the place you started at, and the car drives the frickin' same. Done that.
Well, yeah, so I'm curious. I struggled with my Lamborghini, sideways Lamborghini last year. And now this year, all of a sudden, it feels way better than the Corvette. Last year, it didn't. So again, Saturday is going to be interesting because I'll have both of those cars at Chris's track. And I'm very curious to see how they compare there.
Just quickly, Elwin, what have you done with the Lamborghini? What have you done to it?
It has the sideways, the racer sideways chassis that has all the cutouts on it. I don't know if you've ever, it's very, let me see if I've got it handy.
Because I really like those cars.
Is there a car you don't like?
Yeah. I don't like any of Elwin's.
That's because they're tuned for him to drive.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think my chassis is the same. Is that the green, solid green one? Yeah, I got the same one. All right.
You get screws and little bobbin thingies. I've clamped the chassis everywhere, so it's no longer flexing in the chassis.
Okay.
I've got smooth shank screws on the pod. It's a Sidewinder pod. It's a 25K Piranha motor.
All right.
Front tires glued, trued, and profiled.
Yeah.
The stock guide, if I believe, with NSR braid. It's got ultra grip tires on it, slotted back axle gears.
Yeah.
So all the regular stuff. I've got some weight on the pod.
But what do you say? Jammed up the chassis completely?
Yeah, so it's clamped. It's pretty much clamped tight to eliminate the, you know,
any kind of flexing
part
and
moving
float
relative to this part kind of thing.
Okay.
So is that the right thing to do? Damned if I know.
Yeah, because I don't know why all that stuff. It's beyond me why they do that.
Yeah, I get confused with all of this adjustment.
Yeah, it's too much there. But I like the car. It seems to run okay, but it could run a lot better for me.
Yeah, I got it down to a under 6.7 on 10X's track.
All right.
6.69 or something like that, which is pretty damn quick.
That's faster than any of the rest of us.
It's that bloody car they're using. I hate that thing.
Yeah, so it runs. It's nice. It's very nice to drive on 10X's track.
Yeah.
Which yeah. On Saturday we'll see if it just likes that track and if I've done something to make it. I have different tires on it now. I had replaced the set of tires, and tires are critical. I mean, tires make or break a car. That's the biggest difference that the proxy guys find. Chris has been driving himself crazy. He said he's been preparing tens of sets of tires, and every time he comes back to the set he used on the previous proxy, and it's better on, he puts that set on any of his cars, and it's better than any other. So
Hey, Alwyn, with that 25,000 per annum, that's the one that's got the Neo whatever magnets in it?
Yes.
But everywhere where I see that thing, it never says doesn't mention the type of magnet in it. It doesn't mention the magnets are like a far superior magnet than the ceramic magnets.
Where am I? Where am I? I'm up here.
Do you find the braking any better on that engine, on that motor, than the regulars?
Normally the two go hand in hand. And initially when I found the car was twitchy again, it was two on off.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ross.
Hey,
Cheers,
Ross.
Hi, Ross.
but at the moment, I've replaced the back axle with a non-magnetic axle because I found that the wheels were sort of binding because of the magnet.
Really?
Which is I've never found on any motor ever. This is the first time I thought the bushings were misaligned at one stage, and then, well, no, it's the bloody motor. So I ordered some reputedly, stainless steel axles and also titanium. The problem with the stainless steel axles, you get different kinds of stainless steels. It's austenitic, martensitic, or ferritic. And
Bless you.
Austenitic stainless steels are non-magnetic, but some of the ferritic steels are still actually magnetic. And the stainless steel axles you get from Slotting Plus, and they're magnetic, so that didn't help. But the titanium axles are not magnetic. So I put one of those in the back. I've not, at the moment, I'm finding the car hasn't got too much brakes. It's actually, it flows now. And I don't know if that's just that's contrary to what I was expecting with the strong magnets in the motor. So for some reason, it doesn't have absurd brakes.
Good.
So once again, if you asked me ahead of time, before I put the car in the track, I would have said, I expect this thing to lock up the back end if you have just a little bit of brakes dialed in. No, it actually flows. So it's, sometimes logic fails. No, let me rephrase that. Sometimes my logic fails. Gentlemen, are we pretty much done then?
Thank you again, Alwyn.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Owen.
It's a pleasure. I don't know if you learned anything, but at least hopefully it was entertaining.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
Okay, guys, enjoy the racing tomorrow, and I will put this on YouTube and send a link, and I will also let you know how the testing at Chris's goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Talk to you later, Owen.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
See ya.